Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a great conference so far. Thank you for choosing this breakout session after my keynote. This session is on relationships. Quick, simple strategies for building relationships remotely and also maximizing those opportunities when you do have face-to-face contact with your students this year. Uh, First, I'm going to have an extra cup of coffee. So I'm going to warn you. I know it's still summer mode, so hopefully you can handle it. I'll be right back. This is my Papa cup. I've got two granddaughters. The youngest, Leia, calls me Papa. And in the morning when I have my coffee, I just think of Leia. And I think of the times when I get to snuggle her and hold her and just love that girl. Love that girl. All right. So that was kind of me modeling one strategy, which is I call it the Mr. Rogers way, where I'm not quite ready. Think of him changing his shoes and his sweater, talking to the camera while he's getting ready to teach his audience something. I'm challenging you in your own way to let your students and colleagues see you in your home in a different way. They are so fascinated by you and they want to see the non-educator version of you. And it's so important to show students that we are school counselors and we are spouses and we are friends and we're passionate about hobbies and we have hopes and dreams and fears. So whatever way makes sense, share that. And for example, earlier in the year, I pulled my students into some gardening with my wife and me. In fact, another strategy is plant a little drama. Okay, right? Our students are growing up with reality TV, and of course, drama is always interesting. You can maybe plant some funny moments. But my wife and I staged a bit of a disagreement, argument, fight, but we tried to model healthy conflict, which again is a very important lesson today. I'm finding out, even with my own daughters, who I think are very assertive, very confident, good communicators, our kids today fear face to face conflict, communication conflict, more than death, more than public speaking. Today, it's face-to-face conflict. So find these little lessons that you can sprinkle in addition to whatever your purpose is for connecting. And that it's sort of the Mr. Rogers way. For example, I might be finishing up flossing. No, actually I won't. But think of those kind of things that kids might not always be thinking of. But seriously, folks, if you floss regularly, you add 2 years onto your life on average. That's what the actuaries find out. So sprinkle in those kind of lessons in those moments. And remember, just like in the classroom, your kids love it when you get off track a little bit. Same thing. And I know time is valuable. It might be, you might be connecting shorter, but they still need to see you in a different light. They still want to get sidetracked about life lessons. They still want to vision future opportunities. So don't be afraid to be vulnerable and go from there. So the next thing I want to talk about is, again, okay, if we think like a TV show, I want you to be a breath of fresh air, right? You want them to tune into you every day because there's something that you're giving them. They can't binge watch you. They have to come back every day. So I love this quote that says, great educators, they're like melodies that we cannot get out of our heads. Think of, and this is your first reflection question, think of a teacher who was like a great melody that was just stuck in your head. Maybe it was one line or one lesson. Maybe it was something funny they did that you'll never forget. For me, it was Dr. Mehraban Kodavandi, one of my professors at Lakeland University. And at the end of every class, he said, be good to each other. And he sent us on our way. At the end of every class, be good to each other. That's something I took with me into my classroom. And when I dismissed every class period at the end, I said, be good to each other. Because I feel like it covers so much and you can't argue with it, and it just kind of sinks in. And that was a line that was stuck in my head: be good to each other, be good to each other. When I became a principal, when I did the morning announcements, end of the day dismissal, always ended my announcements with, and remember, be good to each other. And so, what are ways that you can be like a melody stuck in your kids' heads? Okay, so those of you who watch Seinfeld, you remember this was an episode. George was trying to have this kind of impact on a potential girlfriend, and he was like, by Menon, Costanza. So think of you as an educator, your branding, who you are, the best of you. If you've heard me speak before, you know I like to use the word essence. Who you are, the energy you bring, and what you leave behind. So how are you going to bring the best possible essence through the camera or in those short moments you have in person so that you are like a melody that gets stuck in your head? Throughout this workshop, feel free to add your thoughts in the chat. I will be on with you and be hopefully contributing, and I have a little bit of time at the end to talk. Also, use that personal reflection guide and capture your thoughts and ideas. Now, just like in my keynote or any workshop I give, I want participants to know I'm going to throw out all kinds of ideas and strategies, but I'm only hoping that 2 or 3 really resonate with you. And those are the ones I want you to take with you. Okay, so even though it's a workshop, I always say the real work is when you leave and you develop habits and you're disciplined and you do these things so that they pretty much become a way of life and a way of work for you. So just the goal is here 2 or 3. So we talked about Mr. Rogers, kind of that intro, kind of that casual, that calm, that chill, a little bit of life lessons along the way. We also talked about looking at this like a TV episode, a TV show. I also want you to be bold to take virtual field trips. So like I said earlier, it could be as simple as in my backyard. Today's lesson, I got my garden going on. We're kind of watching this, get a little sidetracked. But also be bold enough to leave and do your lesson from some other location. If you choose or have already chosen my work-life harmony workshop, you know that I went to McConnell Springs here in Lexington. So think of a place right now in Louisville or the Louisville area where you could go teach a lesson and share and show with your students a place that maybe they would never go to. So again, think of take a minute, write it down in the chat, write it on your sheet. But where could you broadcast, really, because that's what we're doing, where could you broadcast one of your shows as if you're on a virtual field trip? Okay, as long as I have you thinking about getting out, going, being adventurous, I'm going to stay on those lines and think about getting outside when you are in person with the kids. I don't think our kids are getting outside enough today. And fresh air, sunlight with vitamin D, We know it's good for the coronavirus, but we also just know it's good for our overall health and immune systems. Vitamin D helps us feel good. Fresh air, is so important. And so I started my teaching career in Wisconsin, and the weather is brutal. And usually the first warm day in spring, a student would say, "Mr. Katte, can we go outside?" And I instantly said yes. I always knew that question would come up, so I was prepared with a lesson plan so we could just jump out the doors, walk around the school campus, and I could complete this exciting lesson. I want you to have those kind of experiences. One, that's a novelty, anything new and different. Outside of Zoom, outside of your classroom, it's going to get the kids energized and excited. But it doesn't have to be a really profound lesson either. It can be as simple as what I call walk and talks. And so I was blessed to have a second grade teacher, Mrs. Kramer. She made us watch Mr. Peabody videos, but she was so good about every day we got to walk around the block. A kid who needs to move like me, an athlete, that was like winning the lottery. You mean we get to walk around the block every day? And it's something I carry with me. Right now, I work at the Success Academy here in Lexington with some of our most at promise students. Our walk and talks are some of the best moments of our days, not just mine, but for them. They start feeling better, they sleep better, but the things that I find out about them and I share about me in those walks just lead to greater connections, me understanding them more. Sometimes I can believe in them, sometimes I can empathize with them, but it's just, you have to invest that time. And although I always say relationships, they seem like they're always important, but they're not urgent, they really are urgent today. And so I was so blessed early in my career. A teacher of the year in Wisconsin spoke, and he talked about how he took the first 2 weeks of every semester to just get to know his students, do team building games, just have fun. And people would say, "Well, how did you get through the content?" And he said, "Oh my gosh, we soared. We got through it all and then some." See, I think we do rigor, relevance, relationships. All three are so important, but it seems like we stay in that order: rigor, relevance, relationships. I have found it to be pure magic if you go relationships, relevance, connected to their lives, connected to their futures, connected to helping other people, and then rigor. It just works. So don't be afraid to go a little bit slower and build those relationships as you connect the relevancy and add the rigor. Okay, something to think about. So walk and talks, sunlight, fresh air. The next thing I want to talk about is the importance of being funny. And some of us are funnier than others, but we all have the ability to be funny. And so plant, like I said, bloopers, okay? So a family member could walk by, a pet, whatever you can, it's okay. We want to model, even though educators, especially school counselors, you are all so poised and professional and put together. But sometimes our students are looking at us as if to say, "Wow, I don't get him or her. I can never be like that. I'm a million miles from that." And actually, it's our job to show them that we are way more similar than what they realize. So one of the things I'm working on at this stage in my career is being even more vulnerable and letting them see my frustrations and my fears and my hurts and disappointments and my mistakes and my struggles. And so, and I think a good way to do that is kind of, plant these moments where you are human. Things happen. So be thinking about how you can add humor into these classroom sessions or Zoom sessions, however you're doing it. Plant humor. And also, I know some of you, this might not be the strategy for you, but you will have a kid who is just funny. Give him or her 2 or 3 minutes at the end of the day, at the start of the period. Empower them, have a break. Could be a joke of the day. Whatever it is, try to plant some funny. All right, so another important strategy that I want to give you is to think about family engagement differently. Okay, certainly it's always hard to get our families into the school building, into our classrooms, have that face-to-face engagement. But I've always thought of family engagement differently. And I hope this will cause you to reflect and do things differently and engage your families in a more powerful way. So engage your families through your students. So you have access and you're building a partnership and a collaboration with your kids every day. They have that same access and collaboration with their family members every day. So be intentional about equipping them with activities and tools and strategies that they can instantly take back into their families and change the culture of their families. So, for example, one thing I always tell students is be the water. Okay. And they say, what is that? I say, be the water. So, if we were like a soda bottle and a water bottle and we were getting agitated and people were shaking us up and kicking us around, if you were the soda bottle and it opened, it would explode everywhere. If you open a water bottle, nothing. It's just kind of chill. So I always say you have to be the water. People are going to say things, do things, and you're going to want to explode. But I teach them about that little bit of time and space. Okay, Viktor Frankl taught us that. And before every stimulus and response, there's a little bit of space. I'm trying to get my students to have a little bit more space. So whether it's just breathing, pausing, don't blow up like the soda, be the water. So if that's something they can take into their families where they're less explosive, less reactive with siblings, parents, other people living in the home, neighbors, teammates, whatever, but they're changing the environment they're in. They're modeling that. Hopefully some of that will rub off on others, but that's just one example. Another example, I always did something called, we had Mighty Men of Metathor. They were a men's group, but the Monday after Selection Sunday was our annual men's breakfast. And so men came for donuts. We got them together in the gym. We did a knockout game where, if you know the basketball game, where eventually you get down to the final four, the final two, and the kids and all the men in the stands were cheering them on. One year we even had a slam dunk contest. But the best part, I gave a short message, everybody sitting in the bleachers, and I said to the men sitting there, I said, I want you to turn to the other men nearby and brag on the child or kids that you came to see today. Just brag on them. Just 1 or 2 minutes of bragging, and I could see the kids just puff up in their chairs. You could just see the strength, the life, the confidence, the security just kind of fill them up. It was beautiful. And then I said, kids, right now I want you to do the same thing. I want you to turn to the other students nearby and brag on the man that came to be with you today. That was even more profound. We sometimes think our men are okay, they're strong, they're there. I swear there were tears. And just like they puffed up like the kids did, I swear we filled their buckets in a way that hadn't been done in a while. And it's like we could have gone to the moon and back on that energy in that gym that day. And it was because we just took a few minutes and we prioritized relationships. But we were teaching them both a strategy that says at any given moment, doesn't matter where the situation is, if you pause and say, Dad, you know what I love about you? I love how you always, or son, you know, um, some people don't see this in you, but I see how you are always willing to. Or my girl, gosh, what you mean to me when you do this, and I'm so proud of you. So, unfortunately, our lives are evolving in a way today where those very simple moments, they're just flying by and we're not doing it. So again, we have to make it a habit. We have to be disciplined. We have to prioritize it, but we have to model it as well. Okay, so thinking family engagement differently, you can connect it to lessons as well. One of my favorite lessons was my students would read The Gift of the Magi, where they're trying to buy gifts for each other for $1.87. Wonderful story, classic story, great ending. But I then asked my students to write a memoir. Take a memory of a time in your life that meant something to you, stands out to you, and include somebody in your family that you can give the writing to as a gift. Okay, so we rolled it up and we wrapped it. But we are going to write with a purpose. Our audience is our family. We're going to give this piece of writing as a gift. So we want it to be polished. We want it to be good. One of my favorite examples, her name was Sam. She was a freshman. And she wrote about a time when she stole her family's golf cart and drove it all around her lawn. And they had some hills, and it was after a rain. And she lost control, and it spun down the hill and tore up the grass something horribly. She got it back, parked it, never told anyone she did it. The parents assumed it was her brother. Of course, he denied it, said, no, it wasn't me. They didn't believe him. He was grounded and punished. And it wasn't until a couple of years had passed and she wrote this memoir that she confessed that it was her that tore up the lawn. Those kind of moments, family moments, and if you can connect it to learning, kids just come alive. So this is a true, serious secret about our brains. So sometimes we look at kids and we think, what inspires them? What motivates them? Why are they not getting this? Well, the brains fire differently, far more effectively when students' brains are interested. They are very interested in themselves. We all are, right? If we took a selfie, a group selfie, who's the first person we look at in the picture? Ourselves. Who's the last person you look at in that picture? Yeah, if we're honest, probably ourselves. So we are most interested in our lives and ourselves. So connect the learning to them, their futures, their interests, their brains light up. Along those lines, one of the great ways that you can create engagement during this time is to give them more choice, less assigning and more choice, and more empowering them to demonstrate their learning in a way that makes sense to them. So sophomore English, we had to read Oedipus Rex. Okay, some of you know that play. Very interesting, very complex Greek tragedy, over 2,000 years old. My kids loved reading that play because they knew at the end of it, I was going to ask them to demonstrate the key elements of the learning that play, tragic flaws, all these important components any way they wanted. So we explored their learning styles, and some of our kids were kinesthetic learners. I let my kids show me how they wanted to show what they learned. I just left it wide open. And I'll never forget how one after another, they all amazed me and surprised me. I even left it open-ended and said, here's the due date. But if you come and talk to me and say, you're going way above and beyond and you need more time because you're painting, or I had some students that were writing songs. I had one girl who did a piano recital to all the major action, movement, feel, throughout the play, and somebody read the components as she played this dramatic peace. It was beautiful. I even had a football player wrestler who was all about movement and being physical. He created an aerobics routine to all the major movements in the play, including like the hanging of Joe Costa and some of these other elements. But he took the class through an aerobics routine of some of these major components in the play. I know it's scary. I know you wonder, how am I going to grade this? But I think, again, it connects, they're engaged, they're interested. It is a little scary. I had one group that decided to video a reenactment of the play in a modern day setting. And they were out on 4x4s and, four-wheelers. I'm sorry, we're refinishing our basement. I'm thinking 4x4s. They were on four-wheelers and they recreated this dramatic scene. It's so important that we allow this not only for them to shine and show off who they already are, but to provide opportunities for creativity. Our kids need to be innovators. Ideas are today's currency. So we need to turn them loose. So less sort of assigning in this box, in this worksheet, do this, and more, you show me, you demonstrate your learning for us. Okay. Along those lines, when you do get together, think bigger, okay? Think bolder. You can't do it every day, but you want to captivate them and engage them in big, bold, meaningful ways. So I think of the story of the Lord of the Flies. And the first day that I introduced that book, I wore a sign that said, "I am not here." My students read it, they looked at me, they watched me, but I basically parked in the classroom, didn't even acted like I wasn't watching them. I had no agenda, wasn't doing anything. I just said, "I'm not here." And on the whiteboard, I had two notes, one that said, make sure everybody gets a book. And number two, make sure we record everybody's names with the numbers of those books. And there's a stack of books, Lord of the Flies books. I did this 4 years, 3 different sections of sophomore English each year, so 12 different classes. And each year, chaos ensued in a way that was right in line with what happened in the book. So there'd be a good leader and a not so good leader, and somebody would say, "We just have to give everybody the books and record the names." But there's somebody, "Yeah, but he's really not here. He's not paying attention. Let's do this right now," or "Let's do this over here," or let's 12 for 12. The not so good leaders got the class off track, and we could not even accomplish that simple task. Of course, I was there. I was listening. I was monitoring for safety, physical safety, emotional safety. They would test the limits, and only a couple times did I have to step in. Once they started piling desks, I'm like, wait, that's not safe. But by the time we dove into the book and we started reading the book, the kids were amazed. They're like, wow, that's us. We could have done that. We're all like that. Like there's this, oh, what can we get away with kind of feeling, or we don't have to work right now. We can go do this and get on this adventure. One after another, there are all these things that resonated so deeply with that book. So be thinking about these so we might have less time together this year. So the time that we do have together, they have to be bigger, bolder, more impactful. So think of those Lord of the Flies kind of moments that you can have with your kid. Now, I do have a children's book coming out. It's called Finding You at the Zoo. One of my favorite lines in there is "Be you, be beautiful you." And I think that's probably one of the best tips I can give you today. Now more than ever, the world needs you just as you are. And the kids need to see you shine in spite of all this difficulty and hardship and distraction. When you shine brightly, you show them they can too. And so be you. I really, really want you to be you. and but also show them that there's strength in struggle. That yeah, these are many challenges, but there are always opportunities and challenges. So vision forward. So what does Zoom Classroom this year 2.0 look like? Okay, a month from now, pull them into the equation. What do you need? What would you like to see? What do you wish for in this class experience? And help them vision this class, the school, okay, or their lives, right? What are you're modeling visioning, and you're including them in on it. But I want you to vision forward. So we always set our norms, we always create our classroom experience, but I always say we're just building from here. And if they know they're a part of that experience, and you really pause and take time and you collect their ideas and you show that you're listening and you're doing it, there will be a classroom climate, no matter if it's virtual or in person, like no other, because you're creating this experience together. So visioning 2.0, 3.0. Another important thing I want to push related to the book. I was so blessed to use the illustrations from Tusca. He's an artist here. He taught at the University of Kentucky for many, many years. But he believes that art heals, which we all do. And I want you to take that approach too, okay? Incorporate art more than you normally would in any forms. Open it up to kids, but be intentional about saying, you know what, I think I'm going to push through my comfort zone here, and I'm going to include more art, because that's what happens in the real world. If there's a terrible tragedy, or if a child is taken from his or her family, they often get kids coloring, drawing. Our high school students, they're in a different place when they're just, creating. So don't, whether it's just for that purpose, just to have that chill time, like I said, or if it is to connect it to learning, but find out what that is for them. So an easy way to do that is to incorporate a show and tell experience. Okay, so ask students to bring in an object that means something to them, speaks to them, they want to share, just like when we were little, right? Big kids want to do it too. So today I brought this. This is a notebook I stare at almost every day. It says, I get up every morning determined to both change the world and have one hell of a good time. Sometimes this makes planning my day difficult. E.B. White said that. So I will share with students that kind of, I'm on fire with that mission, but also it's like seize the moment. We don't know how much time we have. Let's have fun. Let's create this experience together. But I'm showing something about me, and then I'm modeling. Okay, now you share and show something to you. Anything, something that speaks to you, something you're proud of, something you're struggling with. You won't believe what happens when you give kids the opportunity to show and tell. Our kids want to be known. They need to be known. Even the kids who are covering themselves in their hair or their hats or their hoods, they're acting like they don't want attention. They do. Attention is so important. Love is essential. And when a basic need of love is not being met, attention fits that void. Whether it's positive attention or negative attention, they have to have it. So find ways to front load that positive attention. So obviously you can't do show and tell for all your students all the time, but you can create a schedule, and that could be how you close the day, how you open a day, how you take a break from a day. Again, that's one of those things where kids will tune into to see what's happening on this experience that you're creating. That's about all the time we have. I want to, again, assure you that we are here for you in a variety of ways. And even though this conference is over, I'm going to be just, a tweet, a text, a message away. I'm a part of this journey with you. So thank you for choosing my session. Thank you for the opportunity for being at this conference. And I hope our paths cross in person soon. Thank you.